And we're back. Erin Quick here, and I am with
Jess Nelson.
And this is take two of, or part two of keeping families safe. And we talked about professionals and some of the unethical practices that we see with professionals in the first part. And now we're going to switch over to talking about some of the kind of red flags that we see when dealing with people posing as expectant moms to get time, money, or attention out of adopting families. And I think it's worth noting that I think a lot of people that haven't been through this say like, oh, is that person after money? And kind of the sad part to this is no, that many times these are not financial scams. The saddest, most pathetic part of this is that they're after attention.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Yeah, the most notorious adoption scammer, Gabby, who's been on CNN and Dr. Phil and had so many articles written about her, she has never asked for a cent. She wants time and attention and conversations and emotional attachment, never money.
Yeah, and my own kind of anecdotal story, because I want to tell families that if this does happen to you, please don't let this end your journey. I considered myself as like, no one could ever scam me. I would be able to pick up on that in no time. And I fully got scammed for the greater part of a month. In fact, we bought plane tickets to go to Arizona to meet her. And she was going to follow through with it. And so it was like, it happens. Some scammers are very sophisticated. There's a really famous social media couple that just promoted their scam on what happened to them on YouTube. And it was pretty sophisticated.
It was. I've seen a lot of adoption scams, and that was the most intricate, thought out, planned, premeditated scam I think I've seen.
Yeah. So don't, like, if it happens to you, please don't let this deflate your hope. We are here today to kind of walk you through some of those red flags so that at least you're aware of what happens. So, Jess, why don't you start us out and we can ping pong back and forth between some of the major ones that we see.
The probably the biggest, and I hate to say this because it does happen, there is a chance, but if an expectant mom reaches out to you and says that she's expecting twins, especially identical twins, that's a big red flag. That's a big reason to pump the brakes a little bit, pause, do some more investigating, because twins are not that common, especially identical twins. And so the odds of an expectant mom being pregnant with twins and wanting to place them for adoption, not impossible, not, unheard of, but very uncommon.
Yeah. And yes, for sure. And especially if she comes right out the gate and says, I'm pregnant with twins. Do you want to adopt them? Like,
yes,
100% not authentic.
No.
The other one that we hear that like when expectant moms contact adopting families right out the gate is they'll use very extreme circumstances. And so it's like, hey, like I've been abused. My partner is in jail. I've done some drugs.
I'm telling you that all up front, all at once. As a birth mom myself, I have gone through this awkward first conversations twice, and there were some less than ideal circumstances around my pregnancies. That was not the first information that I volunteered up. That was way into getting to know them and way further down the line in our relationship. And so when you open up that message and it's just all of these extreme circumstances and crises
early,
that's
another one. And typically what we see is they're trying to qualify you to see, this is sad and mean and cruel, but they're trying to see like, how desperate is this family?
How far
can I go?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's something to like, for sure. And again, not unheard of, not doesn't mean they're for sure, but it means like, okay, like now how do we investigate this to make sure that is it or is it not?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, to kind of tie this back to part one and where some professionals find expectant moms, if you're working with a professional and you're consistently seeing opportunities from professionals where expectant moms are in drug and rehab and all of these extreme circumstances, that's a red flag for the professional that you're working with, because it means that they're probably doing some not great things to find these expectant moms and get them to make an adoption plan.
That's predatory practices at like homeless shelters, drug rehab facilities,
jail.
Yeah. So that's a great point to make. One of the other things that we see is like, well, she sent pictures. I saw her ultrasound, or she sent a letter saying that she had her pregnancy verified.
You can go to fakeultrasoundpictures.com and for $14.99 buy an ultrasound picture with your information put into it. You can literally buy anything on the internet or find anything on the internet. And so just because someone has an ultrasound photo with their name on it, or a letter from even a doctor's office, not to scare you away, but those things are very easy to forge. And so that's why you want to make sure that you are working with a licensed ethical professional that can put eyes on an expectant mom and make sure that she is actually, an expectant mom and is who she says she is.
Yeah. And that's another point too. So if like, what about meeting? Like, what if is she willing to meet with you? Either do kind of FaceTime or willing to meet with you in person. And again, like that doesn't guarantee that it's not a scam, but obviously in an expectant mom, like her belly is going to be some kind of an indicator at some point. And yes, we have also like there are fake baby bumps that can be bought.
There are.
At a certain point, it'll become painfully obvious.
Yes. And an expectant mom that is truly pregnant, truly considering adoption, and truly considering you as an adopting family is going to show up. She might miss a doctor's appointment. She might have 2 screaming kiddos in the background, so she has to reschedule a FaceTime call, but she's going to reschedule. She's going to keep that line of communication open, if not with you, then with your professional or someone that she feels comfortable with. And the other thing that we see a bit when it comes to scams and people pretending to be expectant moms is if when you're talking with them and you say, yes, we want to move forward, can we put you in touch with our social worker or our attorney? And they say, well, I have a friend who's an attorney, or I know an attorney. Unless it's an adoption professional that they have already contacted and are working with, if they just say, I have a friend who's an attorney, that's a big red flag that they're not legit.
Yeah. And then I think the other two that are pretty obvious is if she asks you for any money, and paying for birth mother expenses or expectant parent expenses is pretty normal in this process. But obviously, you as an adopting family it's illegal to be communicating with an expectant or birth family around expenses. And so, if money is brought up, then that is a really wonderful time or gateway to be introducing them to an adoption attorney and or agency that you're working with. And of course, we can always recommend one. Yeah. Because that is, you as the adopting family never want to be in a position where you're talking about money with a birth mother or expectant mother.
Exactly.
And the last one I think that we see too is if you're chosen right away. So if she's earlier on in the pregnancy and you're chosen right away, we know how good that feels as an adopting family, but it can also be a red flag. And by chosen right away, I mean like within a week, like you're perfect, and it's not to say again that it isn't legit. It just means like especially the earlier on she is in her pregnancy, the least likely it is to actually happen. And so it's more about kind of setting expectations for yourself around that. Unless, again, if it is a scam, then and they pick you, choosing somebody right away is a pretty clear indicator. Okay,
Yep.
These are all the red flags. Jess, talk us through what PairTree does to help mitigate some of these.
We do a lot. We do so much to not only protect expectant moms and vet them and make sure that they are who they say they are, but we do so much to protect our adopting families. We are, even though we're tech enabled, we're still human powered. So we've utilized technology to create 4 markers that we track for expectant moms. We track their location, make sure that their IP address matches where they say they are. And in states where we know there's kind of a hotbed of scam activity, like Georgia, that's where Gabby is from. So anytime an expectant mom in Georgia creates an account, she can't message any families until we get in touch with her and make sure that she is who she says she is. And we also monitor their content pattern. We check to see how many messages they're sending, what types of messages they're sending.
It's worth saying, like, we've had so many expectant moms register on PairTree now that there are very clear patterns that we see between legitimate expectant moms that are actually looking to connect and explore adopting families and connect with adopting families versus scam. And so when Jess says content patterns, like if an expectant mom is cutting and pasting multiple messages to multiple families, it's a clear red flag to us because we have never seen a legitimate expectant mom do that.
No, not at all. And so we have technology in place to help us monitor those. The number of families that she messages. If an expectant mom is messaging 10 families, that's a red flag. Messaging 3, 4, 5, that's pretty normal. Because obviously we want expectant moms to have choice and control and power over their own process, and we want them to have options. But messaging 10, 15 families right off the bat, that's a big red flag. And so we have systems in place that if an expectant mom sends a certain number of messages in a certain period of time, we disable her account until we can get in touch with her, see if she is, for some odd reason, messaging 10 families at the same time.
So we're doing all this work behind the scenes too. So I think the platform itself, if an expectant mom flags one of the markers, we, like Jess said, look into her right away, and we let the adopting families know, like, hey, she's flagged a marker. If she flags 2, we deactivate her account.
Yeah.
Because again, some of these women are in different circumstances than anyone has ever been in, and so we don't want to deactivate her account right away if she flags 1. But what we do is we want to let adopting families know as soon as possible to help orient their own expectations, so that say, like, hey, it does not mean she's a scammer, but it does mean that we're looking into her and we'll let you know.
Yes.
And then the other thing I'd like to offer up to families is we have, so as an adoption enablement platform, we work with adoption professionals from around the country, that if you're talking to an expectant mom and she's passing all of the kind of standards on the PairTree platform and you want someone to go meet with her in person, there's a number of partners that we have across the country that we can introduce you to who can go and meet with her in person to help give you kind of that peace of mind if you aren't able to fly out with your own adoption professional. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. And I will say that the woman that we're talking to right now, Jess Nelson, she is like head investigator. And a lot of the PairTree families rely on her to say, hey, I got this message. What do you think about this? Does this seem fishy to you? And so we always encourage our families, like, reach out. It's the collective group of us that is going to make adoption safer. And for any adoption professionals that are listening to this too, we're also always happy to share, when we deactivate accounts, we're happy to share IP addresses of those banned accounts with any adoption professional if they're interested in it, to also keep their families safer, regardless of whether or not they're PairTree. But the goal is, like, collectively together, we can make adoption safer.
Yes.
So I hope this helps. As always, reach out to us with any questions. hello@pairtreefamily.com. This is Erin and Jess.
And I'm Jess.
Signing off.